2020 has been a strange year for movies, and Tenet is one of the most anticipated films, I believe, for a lot of people. What chance does it have to win Best Picture at the Oscars? We're going to talk about it. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about why Tenet has a good possibility of not only getting nominated for Best Picture this year, but winning. Okay, obviously, I haven't seen the movie, and obviously the Oscar ceremony, it's still a ways away. There's still that tiny percentage chance we don't even get an Oscar ceremony this year, because 2020 is crazy. But you know what? We can look towards the future, and I have some reasons why I believe Tenet could do this if it ends up being a good movie, and if it lives up to expectations. Now, if it comes out and it bombs and it's not good, y'all can come back here and be like, Austin, the movie wasn't even good. What are you talking about? I'd be like, you know what? You're right. But I wanted to start a series surrounding some of the films that we all think could win Best Picture this year and be extremely positive in these videos. Basically saying, okay, if this movie lives up to expectations, where could it go from here? How could it do at the Oscars? And I have 5 pretty solid reasons why I believe Tenet could win Best Picture if it lives up to our expectations. So let's get into reason number 1 and talk about the fact that Tenet could be the movie to save the summer. And because of that, I think a lot of people may look at this and say, you know what, turn 2020 around. Not that we haven't had good movies so far, but we've been a bit back and forth on movies that have had a presence in theaters. If it comes out and it does well, even with all of the regulations, and it delivers in terms of quality and reception, people could look at that at the end of the year, whether it's the best, it'll have to be close to the best, but whether it's the best movie of the year or not, and say, you know what, that was so impactful for 2020, and that had such a presence, being the first major release of the summer, it deserves to win Best Picture. Now, is that completely fair in my opinion? No, the movie still has to be up there in quality, but if it sticks to that release date, and we just saw word this morning and last night that Cinemark and Warner Brothers are still trying their best to hang on to that release date, we'll just have to see what happens with the virus itself. And if things go according to plan, even though there will be less people allowed in the theaters, we have a chance of seeing this movie in a little over a month. And if it does pay off, and if it ends up making money and doing well, even in the midst of what's happening in the world, I think that could be a major factor in its presence at the Oscars next year. And we normally don't see movies in the summer or really before Oscar season thrive on the level that a few films here and there have. But Tenet, and this year as a whole, different circumstances, and if it does change 2020 in terms of movies, then I think it has a good shot. Reason number 2, Christopher Nolan just hasn't gotten his due at the Oscars. And I know we're talking about Best Picture in this video, but even when you look at Best Director, his first nomination came with Dunkirk. His first nomination. That is insane to me. The guy that directed Memento and The Dark Knight and Inception, Interstellar, Insomnia, this guy, I mean, The Prestige, non-stop greatness in terms of filmmaking alone. So that in itself should have had him more nominations than just one movie that a lot of people don't even consider his best film. And then Best Picture. He's had a couple here and there. Inception, I believe, is one of the movies that deserved to win Best Picture that year. But we look at what happened then. Sure, it won Best Cinematography, but I believe Inception was clearly a movie at that point that was going to resonate with people just because it was so original. And then some of his films that I truly believe are close to being a masterpiece, not even recognized at all. So Nolan is a guy who just hasn't gotten there at the Oscars, and eventually he'll have to get his due, right? The movie, again, I'm going to say this for every reason, it has to be good, but if it lives up to expectations, I don't see why this film could not have a presence when it comes to those top nominated movies in Best Picture and for Best Director. Reason number 3, this movie could be a fresh and original blockbuster. How often do we complain? And I've done this before, not as much recently because I've seen some really good original movies even this year. That's right, not a lot of films this year, but there have been some good original movies. But in terms of the grand scale blockbuster world, and don't get me wrong, I love my superhero films, I love this and that, but movies are always, or at least most of the time it feels like in the blockbuster world, sequels or reboots or unoriginal ideas, and They work really well, but how often do we get an original blockbuster film? Well, I recall a movie like Inception. I recall a movie like Interstellar, and both of those films come under the banner of Christopher Nolan. If Tenet does indeed capitalize on this concept, if it structures its plot in an entertaining way, if it delivers on the action scenes, if it gives us those grand scale and epic moments, everything that a movie like Inception did, but if it's possibly better than that, now I think those chances are low because I personally have Inception in my top movies of all time, but there is always that possibility, right? If it capitalizes on all of those things and it gets fans in the theater that have never even heard of Christopher Nolan, that don't even know what Tenet means or stands for or what the concept of the movie is, and it delivers, and the fan response, even more important than the critic response in this case, and the fan response is great, that's when you can say, wow, an original, a new blockbuster that we haven't seen before. I think that's an important factor when you're looking at this year's Oscars especially. Number 4, we talked about it being an original blockbuster. This movie has to be more than a blockbuster if it's going to make a splash at the Oscars. It has to capitalize on not only the grand scale set pieces, but the quiet moments with the dialogue. The writing here has to be on point. If they do not explain this thoroughly, try their best to refrain from using exposition that is not necessary. One thing that I think a lot of people say about a movie like Inception is that it used a lot of exposition, and it did. In my opinion, it's necessary for a film like that. I don't mind necessary exposition in Tenet. I just hope the writing is really good. It has to capitalize on the dialogue and the story itself, the way it's structured. We've seen him do this plenty of times. A movie like Memento, a movie like Dunkirk, structuring his plot in a different way from what we are used to seeing. And Tenet has almost pitched itself as this film that is going to change the game. And we've heard members of the cast come out and say, listen, this movie, guys, is going to change the way blockbusters are made. Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. If it does that, then to me it is more than a blockbuster. It almost has to have somewhat of an independent feel when it comes to the dialogue, just on a grander scale with more money put into it, obviously. So if it is more than a blockbuster, that's when I think it makes it splash. And my final reason, number 5, kind of goes off of what we just said, but we're dealing with the complexity of the story. It has to make sense. A movie like this is not going to win an Oscar. It has no chance if it doesn't make sense. And maybe it's a film that you watch it for the first time, you're like, I have questions. And as you continue to watch it, you slowly get your answers. That's the problem with scoring a movie like this on your first watch. It's like, I don't know what to give it because I require another watch. A film like Inception, I wasn't near as high my first time as I am now because I've had multiple chances to soak in all of the information. Tenet has to make sense. And at this point, to win Best Picture at the Oscars, it doesn't even have to make complete sense the first time you watch it because there's plenty of time to watch it multiple times and get to that level. But the story has to be structured in such a way. Nolan, I have faith in you. I have faith in the writers. Everyone involved with this movie. I think it is going to deliver. I think it's going to pay off. But I need to be all there on the way this thing flows. If it is choppy in the least bit, I think that knocks it out of contention to win Best Picture. But if all of these 5 things I've talked about come into place in such a way that delivers... Now keep in mind, that's a difficult thing to do, right? It's rare a movie can fire on all cylinders like that. And I'm not even saying the film has to be perfect from a narrative standpoint, but it has to do all of these things to have a chance of winning. If it does, a lot of positivity here, if it does, I think Tenet could win Best Picture at the Oscars. It's not a prediction. Remember, I will be doing more videos for more movies, and I would love your recommendations down below, but it has a really good shot. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I need your comments down below. This does not work without the conversation. What are you thinking here? Does it matter if Tenet wins an Oscar? To me, it doesn't, right? That doesn't matter. I will still love the movie if I love the movie, and if I don't, well, then whatever. But I think it's important to look forward to the future and just to get excited about the fact that we have a movie that could, according to some people, change the game. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoy these types of videos, it's something new that I've never done before, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. I would love to do more, but only if you guys want to see it. I appreciate you for watching, and I'm going to go watch that trailer about 7 more times.